Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Our topic today is about using our alignment to let the energy take care of us. And it's interesting. I'm right now in Europe. Just probably got about 3 hours of sleep the night before last, 6 hours last night. Been traveling, going nonstop, and it was really interesting. I had a client earlier today and had a lot of things logistically to take care of with the travels and rental car and all of that. And it's amazing to me, despite and really just thinking about my old self, right? If I was just trying to use my brain to take care of all these things, like I'd be exhausted, my mental aptitude would be like zero, I'd be frustrated, I'd be angry. But you having the tool to be able to drop into alignment and go, yeah, it's interesting. Like my body's exhausted, my brain's tired, but I don't really need either of those right now because I'm using my alignment and the energy flowing through me for my guidance, for my clarity, for my focus. And it was funny. I was talking with a client, that just had a session right before we're doing this recording about that, and he's like, I really appreciate you getting on the call. Been running, and it's funny. I'm like, I'm less tired when I'm actually on the call because I can use the alignment to just be that focused. And realizing that each step along the way on this trip, there's been a few things that have been needed bandwidth and attention and frustration, and realizing how quickly the natural tendency is now to go into alignment, because of that. I think we've all been there when we've been traveling or not getting enough sleep for multiple nights. Like our brain gets really mushy. And so that'd be an interesting topic today to go, what does it feel like? What does it look like when we actually use our alignment to allow the energy to take care of us in multiple situations, multiple settings? And so welcome, Nick.
Thanks, David. Good to be here. Interesting topic.
Yeah, it felt timely, and as always, Nick and I, chat for a few minutes, and then we'll tap in and see what wants to come through. And I was getting kind of flashbacks to times before I knew how to hold my alignment, times before I knew how to tap into my own energy and use it for my own clarity and alignment and allow things to flow. And being in similar settings where, you look back and go like, God, I didn't handle that great, but I understand because I was tired. Or, like, oh, I can't believe I dropped the ball in that and screwed that up, but I understand because I was tired or there was a lot going on. And, now it's a thing of like, when I do that, I'm like, well, was I in alignment? And it seems like that's a question that we ask ourselves a lot, when things aren't going the way we want them to, or we don't have the bandwidth, or we're not creating the outcomes that we want, or people are misunderstanding us, or maybe understanding us, and we're sharing things in a way that really isn't supportive or uplifting or aligned. And that question always comes back to, was I in alignment when I was trying to handle that? And usually by the evidence of how it worked out, we usually know, right? Because when we're in alignment, things seem to flow really smoothly. And when we're not, we tend to create a lot of turbulence. We tend to be creating things that from inside of ourselves that need to be resolved on the outside. And it gets reflected in what shows up in our life. And so, interesting topic. You look like you're deep in thought on that. Are you reflecting on that?
I'm reflecting some, and I'm recognizing how sometimes the lack of sleep and the lack of self-care because whatever travel or schedules are off, or not access to the food that you typically have, or the environment that you're in, or whatever it is, those things.
Check. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They start to pile up, and you're like, oh shit, like I'm sort of working in the deficit right now, and this is hard, sort of hard to function.
Yeah.
Whether that's just interacting with the the person where you're trying to do a transaction at the local store, or it's people
Tying your
around you that
shoes.
whatever, right? It's true. Where did I put my thing? How many times you got to lose your glasses or your hat or your keys, right? Um, yeah, and then a tool to use if you can actually think about how do you solve a problem at that point is yeah, because it could be all muddy in the head. But if you could just take a breath and get into that alignment space, you could avoid some problems. I feel like I'm operating a little bit in that space right now, not the alignment space.
Yeah, it's funny, right? You just got back from a trip too that was super taxing, and so yeah, Nick, how's your alignment? Are you asking yourself that question?
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I need to use it a little bit more right about now. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is. It's a funny thing, right? Because as I was saying, we've all found ourselves there. And so, what do we do
Mm.
with it when we find ourselves there? Do we make excuses for ourselves and give us that break, so to speak, or do we, find that internal responsibility, which can look really simple and just go, okay, I got to get my self back in alignment. I got to get my thinking clear, and it's not even thinking. I need to get the way that I'm engaging with myself clear, so that
Hmm.
I'm creating what I want to create so that my energy feels the way it feels, so that I show up the way that I want to feel. And it's not a matter of, how clean is my brain functioning. Of course, that helps. It's not a matter of how tired I am or not tired I am. Of course, that helps. But we also have the ability to lock in on ourselves and to go, all right, like I can do this from this place. If I indulge, which we've talked about in other recent podcasts, right? Indulging in that I'm tired. Oh, this is so hard for me, or I had to go through so much, or like, and I've done it myself for years because very alluring, right? And when we don't have another tool, like we're looking for the reason of why we're not functioning well. And so, what does it look like to be able to have that tool to just go click? Okay, now I have some clarity. It doesn't mean I'm not tired. It doesn't mean that maybe I'm not quite as sharp as I normally would be, but I'm functioning clean and clear, and I'm still coming from a place that is where I know I need to come from. Because when we're coming from, a muddy place or a congested place, it's just what starts to show up in our world all around us. And I think
Yeah.
any of
Yeah.
us, yeah. Do you want to add to
Yeah.
that, or yeah?
Yeah. And I think just to recognize the contrast, um, I mean, you can use that as a point of contrast, right? Like
Mhm.
I can easily this is how it is, and so this is how it is, or you can go, oh,
Mhm.
this is how it is, and my point of contrast is my alignment, and I'm going to choose to operate from there. That could sort of be the flag that shows up for you, that muddy place, recognizing it for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely, and the opportunity to correct it, right,
That's
and to
right.
go into that
Yeah.
place. And it's funny, like just as you were thinking, you were talking there, I started to think for a second, and it's like dangerous
Don't do
territory,
that.
right?
Don't do that.
And I felt like everything get kind of mushy, and I'm like, oh, I have no idea what I'm gonna say next. Like, and I'm like, that right there. It's like I'm starting to slide. Okay, it does take more work to stay in your alignment when you're exhausted or whatever. But then I pop myself back in, like, oh, that's funny. There's that point of contrast, right? Here I am,
Yeah.
where it's just clear, and my voice. I feel like my voice sounds different. I feel like I show up different. The energy coming out of me is different for sure. And then starting to wilt a little bit and going, oh wait, what? I'm trying to use my brain, not going to work. I got to come back here again. Um, and I think that when we're in these points where we've, logistically or, situationally, we've had to push ourselves, it's such a clear time to see what alignment does for us. And whether it's under pressure, like, just thinking about when we got to the airport in Italy, there was some rental car stuff that was screwed up, and here we are, just getting off a red eye flight, 3 hours of sleep. And I'm like, I got to be able to deal with this, like, and I need to have all my wits because there's obviously, they're trying
There's a
to,
cost. Yeah.
right. And how often have you gotten off a long flight and then there's, some sort of pop-up thing with the rental car company, like the number of times I've been, there's been an attempted scam, so to speak. Um,
Totally. Yeah.
and people, you see people all the time, just like, I don't even have the energy here's my credit card.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Right. You need a taxi, you got a taxi. One taxi, got a taxi for you. Right. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that type of like alluring, I'll take care of the problem, and it's not the right problem to take care of. But you see people getting in the cars, you see them
Yeah. Yeah.
get swept away
Yeah, I'm
versus
just too
find the,
tired to deal with this. Yeah.
yeah,
And so,
right. Right.
so it was really interesting having that experience and going like, oh, I got to get into a place to deal with this. and my mushy brain sure isn't going to help me. Um, and and like a lot of like we talk about this a lot on here, and so be kind of interesting to me if somebody's still listening to us that hasn't used at least one of the free resources to try what it is that we're talking about. I don't know how this would still be interesting if you haven't tried what we're talking about
Hmm.
and use the free video course, or there's I think there's 3 different free resources on there that gives you access to what we're talking about, and at least to the beginning steps of it. And
Yeah.
it's in a way, as much as I'm exhausted right now, it's also kind of fun to go look at that part of me that just really couldn't function well, but there's this other part of me I can just pop into and take care of. Yeah, let's record the podcast. Yeah, I can do a session with a client right now because I have
Hmm.
a place I can operate from. I can deal with a rental car agency. I can deal with driving 9 hours today or 8.5 hours today, on top of all that, because I have a place I can do it from. And it's not the old place that I would do it from,
Yeah.
because
Y-
that part falls apart when we don't have what we need.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's certain situations where in your normal everyday life, without the added physical strains of lack of sleep, lack of food, that type of thing, um, which are challenging enough, right? The conversation with your boss, the conversation with whoever it may be, where you should employ alignment to get the best possible outcome. Maybe not the one you want, but the best possible outcome,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it sounds, let me know if this sits with you. It sounds like when you start to throw in jet lag and language barriers and, being hungry because you didn't eat for the past 10 hours or whatever it may be, that we're talking about a more severe corner case, for lack of
Yeah.
a
And
better
actually,
word.
as soon as I went to alignment, I spoke fluent Italian. I don't know how it happened, but
That's amazing. That's amazing.
it's
I
amazing
just
that
say,
this still.
yeah, yeah. I just say bad words in Italian when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I found somebody that spoke English. That was my alignment
Oh,
tool.
it's way better.
Yeah, not a magic wand. Yeah, and so like what happens, what we're talking about, it's so glaringly obvious, as you're saying, when we have a situation like that. But to me also, it gets practice in everyday life. And I see it completely the moment I get sucked into some drama or some story or some upsetness or some whatever, like it just generates something that I don't want. And if I catch it quick enough, I can intervene and bring it back. But it's as long as I've been doing this, it still is so remarkable to me. Like we have this joke that we often talk about when somebody shares something that happened from their alignment. They're like, "Oh my God, I think this shit's real. I think this actually works." you know? And while it's a joke, there's also the piece of like, "Wow, this shit really does work, right?" you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. The surprise of how effective it is still a surprise.
Yeah, and outcome based too, right? And we
Yes.
see it when
Yeah.
we're doing it, but we also see it when we're not doing it. And you're going, oh, look at all this
Yeah.
stuff fall apart. And we work so hard to create these things, and it's amazing how quickly we can have stuff fall apart in our life or in things we've created in seconds, through our actions that are out of
Yeah.
alignment, through our sense of not holding the energetic space that holds everything together. And so,
Yeah.
it's funny to me, and I think everybody's experienced that at some level, where they've worked for a long time to create something, and they slip in some way, and it destroys. In 30 seconds, you can destroy, whatever you worked to create. And it's true at an energetic level too. But there is a little bit of a, like live TV, they have that 2 minutes where they can, stop the feed if something is happening. If Will Smith is slapping somebody in the face, but I guess they weren't quick enough with that. So,
Hmm.
but I feel like with our energy we have that, right? We can start to put something out there, and I would say that the more practice we get at having a really big clear energy field, the smaller that timeline is. But as we're working with that, there is a bit of a time of like the ability, that the window in which we can catch ourselves and go, oh, I'm operating from a place that's not in alignment. And for me, I'll see evidence like within seconds of like I'm starting to slip, and I'll start to get feedback from the world around me that isn't good. And I'm like, oh, right back here. Or maybe I just create something for a little bit and go, yeah, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
Because again, it's not about being perfect. It's about how quick can we recognize it? How quick can we correct it?
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever your tell is, I mean, mine is just feeling very frustrated inside. It's just
Yeah,
like this
yeah,
feeling of frustration. And it sort of is, um, it's a strong feeling, and you sort of have to separate. I have to separate myself. I mean, just let it go off and just fade out. And then it's
yeah.
easier to get back into operating how I normally operate.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that point too, we've talked about quite a bit before about having like a triage kit. It's like if I start
Mm,
to feel like it came to me is what happens when the lights go out. If I get sideways and I lose my connection, what are the steps I'm going to take in order to get myself back? And when we have that available to us, first off is being able to recognize it. Secondly is can I just bring myself back? But the third is what do I need to do? And for me, it's often physical exercise, go for a run, get on my bike, something along those
yeah.
lines where it just clears my energy back out and I get my
Yeah.
bandwidth, I get the internal expansiveness back. Um, and in this case, it'll be sleep, right? Like I haven't
Yeah.
slept really much in 3 days. And so just getting a little bit of sleep will make it a lot easier and a lot less effort to hold that space.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, at some point you got to take care of your physical body, or else
yeah,
that's
yeah,
a different problem
absolutely.
that's going to show up. Yeah.
Yeah, alignment does not replace sleep in the
No.
long term.
No, or calories. No, no,
Yeah,
dinner
you won't
tonight?
have to
No,
sleep. You won't have to eat anymore. You can just be a breatharian. You can just, that's all I need, a good breath of fresh air.
I'm on the Align Living diet. I just don't eat anymore. Oh, that's not good. Oh, it's great. Working out great. Sleep,
Just
don't
hold
need
my
that either.
alignment.
Yeah. I'm
Nice.
good all the time.
That's what we're selling here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. And so, like I was saying, it's so obvious when we're in situations like this where, we are really taxed. But in the day to day, that's really where it ultimately pays off because it's where we train ourselves to under pressure to keep going back here. And when there's isn't pressure, keep going back here. And when, it's kind of like, practice how you play. And sometimes it's really easy to keep it, but when we get taxed, when the perfect bait shows up to pull us out, or the exhaustion shows up to
Yeah.
pull us out, we need to have a default setting, which is I need to go back here again. And if our default setting is, I need to drag my tail in the dirt for a couple days and then come back here, it undoes a lot of the stuff that we're manifesting and creating and all the synchronicities.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't serve us.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you said it implicitly, so I'll say it explicitly. Like the more you put into it up front, the easier it is to 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 get hold of it when you need it, when you are physically taxed. Or you can't just
Absolutely.
magically conjure it if you don't have the skill set to actually, that in the practice and the time you put in. um it's not, it's magical, but it's not magic.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, it's like, am I doing the things that I need to do in order for that to happen? And I either am
Right.
doing them and experiencing it, or I'm not doing them and I'm not experiencing it. And when it
Mm.
becomes that black and white for you of either I'm in alignment and I get all the stuff that comes with that, or I'm out of alignment and I get all the stuff that comes with that. And I can recognize it quickly and I know the experience. And then we just start choosing. And when we make the commitment to living from our alignment, from to aligned living, um, like it really cleans things up and makes it simple. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
very
sure
cool.
does.
Yeah, well, great conversation. And we'll keep it short today because I need to go get some sleep and take care of my actual physical body and and my mushy brain.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Yeah. I could probably take a nap right about now.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, you were traveling a bunch too and being in taxing situations. And so it's um, really clear what the alignment does when we're in it and what it does when we're not in it. So
So true.
yeah, figured that was a timely topic.
Hmm.
But thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you all next week.
Thanks, folks.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.